Primitive life. The world of Homo heidelbergensis and early Homo sapiens. Approximately 300,000 years ago, Earth's environment spanned a mosaic of habitats, vast grasslands, temperate woodlands, river valleys, and expanding savannas. In these landscapes roamed massive mammals like mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, giant deer, and wild cattle. It was in this world that two lineages, Homo heidelbergensis, emerging in Africa and later spreading into Europe, and early Homo sapiens, eventually appearing in Africa and beyond, learned to survive and thrive through an evolving set of survival strategies grounded in hunting, gathering, tool use, and collective knowledge. They had no agriculture, late domestication, or permanent cities. Instead, their day-to-day survival centered on adapting to local environments, migrating seasonally, and using shelters such as caves, rock overhangs, animal hide tents, or occasionally temporary structures made from wood and brush. Their tools were crafted from flint, quartz, bone, and wood, and their ingenuity extended beyond mere survival. They began to build cultural memory and knowledge shared across groups, an essential aspect of their survival, and the foundation for future human societies was their relationship with food. In the absence of farming or animal husbandry, they depended entirely on what nature provided. This article explores 10 representative foods from their diet, how each was sourced, processed, prepared, and shared, illuminating not just what they ate, but how they thought and organized communal life around nourishment. Meat on Bone: 10 key foods and their sourcing, use, and preparation. 1. Large game meat. Source: mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, wild cattle, giant deer, bison. Methods of acquisition. For these massive animals, survival depended on group cooperation. Hunters used sharpened wooden spears or stone-tipped implements to wound or guide animals into ambush traps, cliff drives, or natural valleys. Younger or injured prey were easier targets. They may have used distraction techniques or coordinated charges, all passed down from elders to the next generation. Processing and preparation. After a successful hunt, the group worked quickly to butcher the carcasses, reserving the prime cuts of meat and organs. They hung large sections near the fire to roast slowly or place slabs on flat hot stones. Some meat was sliced thin and air-dried, an early version of jerky, to preserve it. Groups often carried dried portions during seasonal migrations. Nutrition and communal value. This was the most calorie-dense food. Hunting large game provided vital proteins, fats, and nutrients, and represented communal effort. The spoils were shared among the group, which strengthened social bonds and ensured survival during lean periods. 2. Bone marrow. Source: the long bones, femur, humerus, of the large animals left after butchering. Acquisition. Although not prized at first glance, the marrow inside bones was an exceptionally rich source of fat, vital in colder climates or lean seasons. After flesh was removed, they would smash bones using large stones or wooden clubs. Preparation. After breaking them open, marrow could be eaten raw, especially if still warm, or it could be gently heated over the fire to soften and release the fats. A single bone could feed multiple members. Nutritional and cultural significance. Bone marrow's high-fat content helped maintain energy reserves and was especially important in climates with high caloric needs. It also demonstrates resourcefulness, wasting nothing. 3. Fish and other aquatic creatures. Source: river fish, eels, crustaceans, shellfish, freshwater, and nearshore. Gathering methods. Some early humans lived near water bodies, streams, lakes, marshes, where fish traps made from stones or woven reeds could channel fish into shallow traps. Spears fashioned from sharpened hardwood or bone were used to catch fish in shallow water. Insects, turtles, crayfish, and freshwater mussels were gathered along riverbanks. Preparation. Freshly caught fish were pit-grilled or roasted on sticks over fire, or cooked in a shallow heated pit lined with stones and sealed with leaves to retain steam. Shellfish might be roasted or cracked open directly on heated surfaces. Benefits. Rich in omega-3 fatty acids and protein, fish provided essential nutrients often lighter in bulk than land meat. In wetter climates, Aquatic food provided reliable accessibility and dietary diversity. 4. Insects. Source: termite mounds, log carvings, ant nests, root zones. Gathering: insects like ants, termites, grubs, larvae, and adult beetles were gathered from under rocks, inside decaying wood, beneath tree roots, and termite mounds. Some may have used smoke to coax insects out of their nests. Snacking on insects required little equipment, but delivered dense protein. Preparation: they could be eaten raw, if palatable, or briefly roasted over open flames or coals to crisp them and reduce moisture content. Insects were often dried in bundles, easy to carry and long-lasting. Value: in harvest or lean periods, insects bridged the gap between scarcity and need. They were accessible even when large prey or seasonal fruits were not available. 5. Wild bird eggs. Source: nests belonging to ground or tree-nesting birds. Gathering: hunters tracked bird nesting areas, basking sunlit ground nests or tree cavities. Using sticks, people could access ground nests. Climbing trees or using rudimentary scaffolding allowed access to elevated nests. Early humans likely approached quietly during early morning when adult birds were absent. Preparation: eggs were either roasted on flat heated stones or eaten raw if fresh and clean. If carried during travel, eggs could be sheltered in leaves or hollowed bark to avoid cracking. Benefits: eggs offered portable protein and fats, often collected in small numbers but cumulatively valuable, especially for women, children, or small foraging parties. 6. Nuts and wild seeds. Source: chestnuts, pine nuts, wild pulses, acorns, other seed-bearing shrubs/trees. Gathering: forests offered nut-bearing trees and shrubs. Gatherers picked up fallen seeds and nuts during autumn or early winter, often in caches. Nuts were stored in woven baskets or hides. Preparation: they were roasted over the fire, then cracked and shelled. Some communities may have ground nuts into coarse meal or paste, mixing them with water to create a rudimentary flour or patties. In some climates, seeds might be leached to remove bitterness, e.g. acorns. Importance: high in fat, carbohydrates, and protein, nuts and seeds were essential for sustaining energy during seasons when hunting success was uncertain and berries were gone. 7. Wild fruits. Source: berries, blackberries, raspberries, figs, wild grapes, plums, wild apples/pears. Foraging: gatherers knew which plants fruited in each season. They harvested along riverbanks, forest edges, meadows. Selective picking, choosing ripe over unripe fruits, was likely passed down through generations. Preparation: commonly eaten fresh. Excess was sun-dried or partially dehydrated on rock surfaces or woven racks for storage. Mixed with nuts or seeds for nutrient variety. Role: rich in fiber, vitamins, and natural sugars. Fruits helped maintain micronutrient levels, prevented scurvy-like deficiencies, and added variety to the diet, especially during warmer periods. 8. Wild roots and tubers. Source: yams, cattail roots, stone lotus roots, edible bulbs. Harvesting: roots were dug from riverbanks, wetlands, or forest floors. Tools like pointed sticks or scraping bones helped reach them. Some plants require knowledge of seasonal growth cycles to find edible roots versus toxic ones. Preparation: because some tubers contained toxins or were indigestible raw, they were always cooked, roasted near coals, boiled in heated pits using heated stones, or baked in ashes. Cooking improved flavor and safely detoxified. Nutrition: carbohydrate-rich and relatively dense. Roots were reliable during certain seasons, especially if animal prey was scarce. 9. Honey. Source: wild beehives located in hollow trees, cliff crevices, or termite mounds housing bees. Collection: harvesting honey was dangerous and risky. Gatherers used smoke by burning green branches to quiet or remove bees, then approached the hive directly. The honey-bearing comb was carved out with bone or wood tools. Preparation: consumed raw or mixed with crushed berries or nuts as an energy-rich treat. Also possibly stored in bark containers or hollow gourds. Significance: pure sugar source, rare in natural diets. Honey offered quick energy, especially useful for nursing women, children, or before long journeys. 10. Edible leaves and stems. Source: wild greens, tender shoots, young reeds, banana-like plant stalks, edible sedges. Gathering. Collecting required careful recognition of safe versus toxic plants. Such knowledge was passed orally across generations. Pickers gathered young, tender parts, which were typically more nutritious and easier to digest. Preparation. Some leaves were eaten raw, others boiled or pounded before eating. Often they were combined with meat or tubers, or used to wrap and cook fish or root pieces on hot stones or embers. Impact. Sources of fiber, vitamins, and water. In times of limited meat or dried fruit, greens help maintain overall macro and micronutrient balance. Magnifying glass tilted right broader context. Social structure, tool use, and shared knowledge. Group organization and food sharing. These early humans lived in tight-knit groups, averaging 20 to 50 individuals. Hunting large game required cooperation, while gathering often involved family members and children who helped collect fruits, insects, or nuts. Food sharing was communal. Successful hunts or seasonal harvests were divided among the group, reinforcing social bonds and reciprocal trust. Tool use and innovation. Homo heidelbergensis and early Homo sapiens developed tools such as Mousterian-style flint flakes, sharp-edged for cutting meat, throwing spears, and thrusting javelins made of hardened wooden shafts, bone and antler tools for fishing, digging, grinding stones, or mortars for processing nuts and seeds, braided or woven baskets, hides for carrying food, storing nuts or honey. These tools evolved gradually into more complex forms and represented incremental cumulative knowledge. Fire. Foundation of innovation. Fire was central. It provided warmth, protection from predators, and most importantly, a way to process food, from roasting meat to detoxifying roots and nuts. Mastery over fire allowed these humans to extract more calories with less effort, making available tougher meats and starchy roots edible and digestible. Cognitive and cultural transmission. The methods of identifying edible plants, organizing hunts, and preparing meals were preserved by teaching and imitation. Some groups may have decorated cave walls with representations of hunts, animals, or clustered food sources, early symbolic thinking that strengthened group identity and memory. Bar chart. What archaeological evidence tells us. Cut-marked animal bones in cave sites show coordinated butchery, e.g. in Europe and Africa around 400,000 to 200,000 years ago. Charred plant remains, seeds, nutshells, and fish bones at sites like Blombo's Cave, South Africa, or Gesher Banat Yaakov, Israel, illustrate diverse plant and aquatic diets. Bone tools and grinding stones coated in plant starch residues. Cave art and engravings dating back 100,000 plus years suggest symbolic and nutritional awareness, though typically later than 300,000 BP. These discoveries reinforce that while living reconstructed life may have been raw and primitive, the food habits of these populations were surprisingly varied and adapted to local ecologies. Puzzle piece. The significance of this diet. Resilience through diversity. The ability to rely on 10 different categories, from insects to large game, meant survival was less dependent on any single food source. Nutritional completeness. Meat supplied protein and fat. Plants, fruits, nuts, roots provided fiber, carbohydrates, vitamins, and minerals. Honey gave quick sugar. Water nested in plants, and fish supplied hydration. Seasonal flexibility. Groups could harvest fruits in warm months, collect nuts in autumn, hunt in winter, and fish near water sources year-round. Cultural continuity. Food-related knowledge was passed through storytelling, teaching, and participation, laying the groundwork for cultural transmission central to human societies. Through food, these early humans formed social cohesion, extended their range into varied climates, and created the adaptive behavior that distinguishes our lineage. Bow and arrow conclusion. A legacy of survival and ingenuity. By examining the 10 foods, large game, bone marrow, fish, insects, eggs, nuts and seeds, fruit, roots, honey, and greens, we glimpse the sophisticated survival strategies of Homo heidelbergensis and early Homo sapiens. Far from being passive or simple, they were active hunters, knowledgeable foragers, resourceful cooks, and communal shares of critical knowledge. Their diet reveals more than calories. It reveals innovation, community, adaptability, and foresight. The lessons embedded in their lives foreshadowed agriculture, food preservation, social organization, and symbolic thought. From the first roasted mammoth ribs to a handful of dried berries mixed with ground nuts, their dietary world is the bedrock of human civilization.